For context, this video went through several different rewrites because I wanted to make sure I got everything right. So if something is wrong, I'm gonna cry. Something I've referenced several times in my videos is Jesus. Not this one, this one. My point is, I feel like religion is often misinterpreted in many ways, by people inside and outside the community, and by extension, the whole concept of faith is very misconstrued. Some people have created this belief system that blackness and spiritual beliefs are mutually exclusive, and I find that interesting. Let's talk faith, let's talk about it.
It's called Operation Black Steel.
We should call
We're calling it Operation Black Steel. I like that name. We're not changing it.
The episodes I'm going to reference the most in this episode are The Passion of the Reverend Ruckus, A Huey Freeman Christmas, Pause, and bits and pieces of Black Jesus. The reason I do this is ultimately to give the episode some focus, as opposed to this series ultimately amounting to Storyteller's soapbox. In The Passion of Reverend Ruckus, Ruckus has a dream where he goes to white heaven, and preaches that in order to get to heaven, black people have to hate themselves and love white Jesus. I'm not making that up. From my understanding, this is the play on the idea that slave masters used religion to oppress and suppress black people, and I have mixed opinions on this, but more on that later. In the episode Pause, Winston Jerome is using Christianity as a front to write gay plays and sleep with oily light-skinned men. I swear to you, I ain't making this up. The Boondocks has a lot of plays on religion and preachers, but if there's one recurring similarity between them all, it's that they're all interpreting the scripture to their own bias, their own agenda, their own reality. That could be as innocent as Jasmine seeing Jesus and Santa as one and the same, or it could be as destructive as Ruckus using it to push his racist agenda. Or it could just be, Winston Jerome being gay. My whole point is, the show establishes that regardless of religion, it's very easy for those reading the scriptures to misinterpret based on their character and their bias. And these are things that could be done both consciously and unconsciously. I don't think the idea is to be entirely anti-religion or anti-spiritual beliefs, but I think it's supposed to raise questions on who we let influence our lifestyles. Any and every form of spirituality is personal, and because of that, all someone offers when they provide guidance and talks is their own understanding of reality. This isn't an anti-religious statement, but it should be stated. Religion, more often than not, is used to justify lifestyle choices, with the interpretation either reflecting their own values or serving as this utopian way in which you think people should live. Ultimately, it's all susceptible to scrutiny, and I think it's understandable that a lot of black people have become increasingly desensitized to it. In more recent cases, black people who learn more about their history stray further and further away from spiritual practices because of it. Some call it woke, but I hate that word, but we're not using it, I refuse. My point is, I feel like there's been this increase in black people viewing these concepts as incompatible because of how easy it is to corrupt and control those who are religious, and is an inherent part of our history, and I think that's ultimately because people are naive. Someone can yell out anything, but if they add "in the name of God" or "praise Jesus" and dress up in a certain way and do enough posturing, it's very likely that those who subscribe to those beliefs will, eat it up. This can be as simple as pushing agendas to advocating for Trump's presidency.
That's why he made his only begotten son in your image. God hates darkies.
That's why it's so important to understand why you believe what you believe, what your own understanding is. And to understand that, we need to educate ourselves. Faith and education aren't mutually exclusive. Historically, Christianity isn't even a white man's religion. In the book The Early Church in Africa, it states that Christianity came to Egypt far before it came to European countries, to the point where it could be considered traditional African religion. And while slave masters used Christianity to keep black people oppressed, there were black people who knew about these lies and formed their own deviations of Christianity and their own understanding of it. And during the civil rights movement, the black church was a huge foundation for strategizing, unionizing, and educating the masses. Jesus was black, Moses' wife was black, and there's a bunch of references to African heritage within the Bible. Christianity isn't inherently a white man's religion, and any form of in-depth research will tell you that. But you'd only know that if you did research, if you asked questions, which is something a lot of people subscribing to these spiritual beliefs don't really do. You can't fear research, you can't fear doubt. Because then we as people are left to ask how secure you are in your own faith that you have to be so dismissive of any and all conversation.
Actually, Granddad, Christmas is a pagan holiday, and Jesus probably hates you for celebrating it.
Knowledge and faith aren't incompatible, just as I don't think doubt and faith are incompatible. Dare I say, I think it's a powerful weapon in strengthening it, because faith is born in doubt. When you've been systematically oppressed and battered, some would say be on the edge of return, and you have to live this life knowing that you're at the bottom of the barrel, you can really become jaded to this idea of a deity. In some cases, it manifests in this form of grudge or hatred.
Where was Santa when we was in the hood, huh? Santa ain't show a nigga no love back then. I didn't ask for much.
just rims, not even the whole car. And what do we get? Nothing. That nigga gonna pay what he owe.
Okay, yeah, cool. Riley's ungrateful and materialistic. But the point being made here is that, being in the hood, not getting any love, it makes sense. A lot of black people are mad at God because when they struggled and hustled, nobody was really there for them.
Why doesn't the real Santa come?
'Cause there ain't no real Santa.
Which segues into this next point, miracles. Someone say it's a miracle that black people still aren't slaves, excluding prison. Someone say it's a miracle that Huey's play even aired. Someone say it's a miracle that Shabazz was saved. Someone say none of it needed to happen in the first place.
Jesus. Can't believe the police came to this neighborhood and actually helped us out, man. That's crazy.
Hey, that's because you was a disbelieving motherfucker. You see, miracles be happening in your face all the time and you don't be trying to see them.
And some would say God works in mysterious ways. Maybe we're not appreciating the little miracles right in our faces. There's a lot of grey and it's ultimately down to how you interpret it. But in that sense, you're in control of your own reality. The 5% Nation teaches that the black man is God. That as the first creation, we have spiritual seeds planted within us. I'm not sure how much I agree with that, but I think there's something to be said about how we, with our own free will, dictate what we take from biblical scriptures. In that sense, we are the rulers of our own reality. Because our free will has made our understanding subject to our own reality. Free will is a blessing and a curse. But then one could argue we're just making up our own gods. And what makes one god any less made up than the other? Even if the branch is the same religion, what makes one interpretation any more valid than the other? And just as Christianity was used to oppress black people, it was also used to uplift the black community in the civil rights era. It isn't rigid. It isn't decisively good or bad. It's grey. It's ultimately up to the individual what they use it for and how they represent it. I don't believe that religion is wrong. I don't believe that spiritual beliefs are silly. I say this as someone who does subscribe to some of these things. You can see it in the videos, but I do believe that there is a God. But we need to acknowledge our biases, and most importantly, the biases of others. You can't let a preacher dictate your way of life because of how good they are at posturing. A majority of the time that Jesus spent in the temple, he was criticizing the leaders and preachers. What do you think that says? Galatians 6:12 says, "We fight not flesh and blood, but powers and principalities." Just as Jesus is this double helix of humanity and spirituality, in many ways so are we. So instead of fighting our nature and trying to live this delusion of perfection, all we can really do is try to be the best versions of ourselves, and channel that into trying to make the world a better place. Learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, and plead the case of the widow. Spirituality can really bring out the best in people. It sparks a significant amount of black activism, and it can really make people want to better themselves and their surroundings. It can be a conduit and a vessel for sparking change. Jesus would criticize the system at place. He would curse, he would call people serpents and vipers. He would criticize the preachers and leaders, and I think there's something to be said there. Jesus was raw, honest, and advocated for change. There's nothing wrong with doubt and questioning things. Jesus' most loyal disciple was a guy that constantly said, "This shit ain't gonna work." Peter, what do you think that says about the nature of faith and how it works? Struggle is a test of faith, and black people are no strangers to struggle. Faith is almost what you want it to be. To some, that's what makes it absurd, but I don't know, to me, I think that's what makes it beautiful. There's something to be said about people having the ability to connect with and understand themselves through their spiritual beliefs. Because ultimately, that's a huge facet of what it all is. I don't think life is about being perfect. I think it's about being the best version of yourself. Black people have used their spiritual beliefs to uplift them, fight for change, and inspire themselves and others to be better people. I think any form of spirituality can help people better understand themselves. As to systematically disenfranchise, black people, we're often left praying for miracles. Does it make sense? That depends on your perspective, but I'm gonna leave you with this. The Passion of the Reverend Ruckus ends with two key events. Huey exposing the governor's gay lover, and the lightning strike that turns off all the electricity in the city. If the lightning strike never happened, then Huey's plan wouldn't have worked in time. But if Huey never went through with his backup plan, then Shabazz would have been executed straight after. Would you say that Huey made that miracle? Or was it a force that we can't understand? I think it's both. Ignoring the fact that Aaron wrote it, don't ruin my analogy. Black Jesus likens the relationship with God to a garden. You can't expect a garden to grow anything if you don't give it soil, water, and care. I don't do gardening. The garden will do its part, but only if you do yours. It's like our relationship with God is like our relationship with nature. If you do your part, then nature will take its course. Faith is complicated, but having faith while black is incredibly complicated. Blackness and spiritual beliefs aren't incompatible. Some people inside and outside religion would like to convince you that spirituality operates under these certain conditions, these very specific conditions. Some would say it's driven by money, some would say it's drawn to suits, some are drawn to the amount of time someone spends in church, some would say it's moral superiority. It's all posturing and it means nothing. Spirituality is an opportunity to connect with and understand yourself. And religion is complicated because it can literally be used for anything, and it can be seen in any way. So to those who aren't religious, understand that faith isn't always this right-leaning, backwards conservatism. Or at least it doesn't have to be. You can never assume someone's understanding of faith. And to those who are religious, understand your biases. Use your faith to understand yourself, and try your best to interpret these scriptures in ways that make you a good person, as opposed to isolating yourself in this backwards bubble. Don't let fear-mongering preachers and politicians sway you from doing the right thing. People had the most malicious of motives behind religion, and it's why having faith gets such a bad rep. It's why people assume that those with it are uneducated. It's on you to have the sense, the conviction, and education to know when something is fishy. If a politician says, I'm gonna get all these black and brown people out of the country and rig the election in Jesus' name, then of course, then you shouldn't support them regardless of their faith. Cause that's the equivalent of me supporting a bad black movie just cause it's black. Kind of punk do I look like? Black people, we're so drawn to flash an image that sometimes we feel this need to adhere regardless of what's being said. A preacher could throw in, God, getting off D-crown, and the whole crowd would go crazy. I'm not saying that you're being brainwashed, I'm not saying you're being exploited. I just feel like we should be careful once again and know what we believe. Do your own research, question things, don't fear your doubts. Those challenges should form the substance of your faith. Just like, the disciple Peter. This channel, this series, if you're a fan of what I deliver, understand that my desire to speak out is founded on my faith and my personal conviction. Those are my vessels for what I do. Regardless of what you take away from this video, understand that it's not my intention to convert people. Trust me, nigga, you and me both know that ain't happening. Believe what you want to believe, but I'll leave you with this. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not yet seen. There's a lot of things that as black people, it's very easy to see not changing anytime soon. Faith is therapeutic, it keeps us going. And regardless of where you channel that faith from or towards, we all want to believe that with enough hard work, we can live in a world of peace and create a better future. God works in mysterious ways, just like nature. So just do your part and plant your seed. And whether you believe in the garden or not, let nature take its course. Thank you guys for watching. This has been Operation Black Steel. Stay real.